So did you enjoy lunch break and raffle? Yes, and are you ready for afternoon sessions? Okay. So the next session is titled Stop Treating Accessibility as an Afterthought, Concrete Steps of Building Inclusive Apps. And it will be presented by Manuela, Sakura, Rommel. Please give a big loud applause for the speaker.
So, hello everyone. My name is Manuela, as I was kindly introduced. So I'm a senior Flutter developer at Antigua, Women Tech Makers Ambassador, and a meetup organizer for Flutter Berlin with Sasha, who is also sitting here and is gonna talk today. So, today we are going to talk about accessibility. And I actually interviewed a few people that are in need for accessible apps for this talk, because I wanted to know what can we fix, what can we do better. And everyone had one thing in common. Using apps makes them feel included in society, and also they wanted to be able to do their own thing on their own. So actually it's super important for each of us humans to do as much as we can on our own. So I'm sure we can all agree on that. So if you have a child, you know, if a toddler learns something, they want to do it by themselves. So autonomy is a big thing, and also tech is a big thing, because if you think of Instagram, people are sharing their favorite moments and connect with their friends. And it's important just to include everyone, so we have a good picture of society. So let's see how we can achieve this with our expertise as people working in tech. So, first of all, what is accessibility? Accessibility is the practice of making your digital products usable by as many people as possible. And that means not only for people with disabilities, but everyone. It's a common misconception that people think accessibility is just for people with disabilities. That's not true. It's actually for everyone. So if you think of a woman, for instance, carrying a lot of shopping bags in one hand, and you are using the phone in another hand, you have a temporary accessibility problem. So you only have one hand to use your apps with. So accessibility is for everyone. Why should we work on that? First of all, we talked about it, it's for everyone. Second of all, it's quite a lot of people that are in need for accessible apps. 1.3 billion people, in fact, which are about 16% of the worldwide population. So if you want to have a global app, it's 16% of population that might need accessible features. So, how is Flutter handling accessibility? So Flutter takes accessibility super serious. So whenever there's an issue concerning accessibility, it gets a high priority in fixing. And also the pre-made Flutter widgets basically have all accessible features included, or you have a tooltip or a label where you can add some semantic information, which will be read by a screen reader. So, what are semantics? I just talked about it. So, for instance, a blind person would navigate through an app with a screen reader, and that's something that will talk about what's on the screen. So, you can see here the counter app that we all know, and I have made some boxes around the widgets. And each of those widgets have a node in the so-called widget tree in Flutter. So Flutter has a lot of tree actually, and there's not just a widget tree, but also a semantics tree. And not each widget node in the widget tree has a semantic node. Because if we go back, you see, for instance, the floating action button has two boxes. It's the floating action button and the plus icon. But actually, for a person that doesn't see the screen, it's not important that there's a plus icon. It's important that it's a button that increases the counter, so we don't need two semantic nodes. We just need one. So that's why it looks different. And this is basically how the semantics tree gets created. So we write widgets, we have a widget tree, and this widget tree creates an element tree which stores some state or other informations, which then draws the rendering tree, which then creates the semantics tree, which converts to the platform-specific objects, like UI accessibility for iOS or accessibility node info for Android, iAccessible for Windows. Platform support for accessibility is given for mobile, desktop, and web, but there is a special thing in web. So basically, when you navigate on a Flutter web app with a screen reader, you will hear about a button, a invisible accessibility button that you have to turn on. So that was made because the Flutter team wanted to keep Flutter web performant. So they decided that the semantics tree in web will only get built when you turn on the button. So I made a video to compare a traditional web framework with Flutter web app.
To click this button, press Control, Option, Space, to exit. Reply an efficient, focused email app, group. Shrine a fashionable retail app, group. Rally a personal finance app, group. Crane a personalized travel app, group. Build apps for banner. Visited link image. Flutter. List 5 items. Link. Multi-platform. Link.
So you didn't hear the beginning, so I will just run it again.
Enable accessibility, button. You are currently on a button. Inside web content. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space. To
So that was the invisible accessibility button. Now the Flutter team has given us a way to enable the semantics tree by default. You just have to add in the main function just semantics binding instance ensure semantics, and then it will turn on by default. So to showcase a few accessibility issues, I made an app called Bear Buddies. So let's check it. So we start with large font. Large font is one of the most used accessibility features, actually. It's probably around 25% of all users. You can actually add some analytics in your app to check that out. So, what issues could we have? So, for instance, you have constrained your text and somehow it's cutting off. That means you just have to add a scroll view, you have to maybe dynamically size something, pretty easy thing, but you have to test it and see it and know it, otherwise somebody who scales the font will have a problem. Or you have used rich text which doesn't have accessibility features and the text isn't scaling, or you have used a package that constrains text. So what can you do? Instead of rich text, use text.rich and you have all the accessibility features and the text will scale. Now we can talk about colors and contrast. So there's something called color vision impairment, and people see colors sometimes very, very differently. So you see true colors here and then different ways how people see colors. So it's important to never show important information only with color, but also with text or something. You can simulate that with Android and iOS just to check out how people will see your app that have this color vision impairment. So with my bear app, you can see the danger level. And the giant panda and the brown bear seem to be not dangerous or like the same way dangerous. But actually, the brown bear is very, very deadly. The danger level is red, so that's not very good. We should write, for instance, high or low. So, contrast is another important thing. I have a longer talk of this version. I have linked it in my QR code later. That's where I talk more about this. But today I'm a bit constrained with the time. So let's talk about screen reader. Who knows here how a blind person uses an app? Perfect. So for the rest of you, I have a video prepared. So, everyone understood everything? It was very slow, right? No, it was not. So actually, you can see people are extremely good at hearing fast things. But you can also notice how important it is to be concise with your semantics. If you write elaborate semantics, it will take too long to read it and the user is a bit restricted. So, in Flutter we have a widget called semantics. You can give with this widget those informations that when the user navigates, you get some information on the screen reader which will be read out. Semantics is a simple wrapper widget. You wrap the widget that you want to give semantic info to inside semantics and can give it more properties, something like image true, which might be important later for testing also. Semantics has a lot of properties actually. One thing that I want to talk about today is the sort key. With the sort key, you can basically sort in which way the widgets are read out from the semantics or from the screen reader. So we have here again two videos with sort key and one without sort key. So let's start without sort key.
Accessibility project. Last. Second, first.
So you can see it's reading from top to bottom, and now
first, second, last.
So you basically can give it with a sort key a way how should it be read in which order. Then another important semantics widget is merge semantics. Again, a normal wrapper widget when you want to merge two semantic nodes together. That's great if you have information that belongs together for a checkbox, for instance, or something else. So again, normal wrapper widget, the semantics nodes that should be merged should be wrapped in it. And again, a video.
Danger level, high. Danger level, high.
So you see the user has to only once navigate, which is great. Then we have block semantics, great for cases like a pop-up. It will block out any semantic node that is behind this block semantics widget. Again, a normal wrapper widget, and here another video.
Warning, they're behind you. Warning, they're behind you.
So you cannot navigate away. Then we have exclude semantics, a great widget to exclude something that you don't want to be read. So here another example. So you wrap the thing that you don't want to be read out by the screen reader.
Hi bear buggy. Brown bear.
So you would never skip such a big text, but this is just to showcase the widget. So another important thing is we can actually test for accessibility because testing will tell us if we broke something when we touch our code again, because every code that we write now will be legacy code tomorrow, and if we change something about that code and add some features, we break things. And with testing, we can ensure that we didn't break accessibility. So Flutter gives us the accessibility guideline class, which has great matches with which we can test against the WCAG guidelines. Those are guidelines that the World Wide Web Consortium made to have basically a guideline how we can make apps accessible. So for instance, we can test for Android tab target guideline. A button has to have a specific size to be accessible. And we can test for iOS tab target guideline and, for instance, text contrast. So our app is more accessible. Then we can test also for overflows with scaled font. just to see if there's any overflows, something where the user won't see the text anymore. Another thing what we can do is check semantics during tests. So with this test, you can basically verify if your tooltip or your label is there. One thing to note though is it is not a fuzzy match, so it has to be very exact. So if you gave it a boolean that image is true, you have to add that. You have to add every information of that semantics, otherwise the test will fail. So it's very lengthy to write this test, so I can recommend in a business case to write it for the main flows. So then we can test the UX for the screen readers. Remember the order in which you can read the semantics. We can test that with simulated accessibility traversal, just to see that our screen reader UX is still how we want it to be. We have also debug dump semantics tree in case anything goes wrong. It will basically show the whole semantics tree and the semantics node with all the information. So if you need to debug something, just use debug dump semantic tree. And we can also visualize semantics. So we have in the material app the nice flag visualize semantics, or show semantics debugger actually, which visualizes the semantics. So you basically have those boxes of widgets and you see how the screen reader sees your app. And that's quite nice, because then if you sometimes have a semantics node that's not read out, you can just check, is it somehow like not there? Why is it not there? You can like debug with it a little bit. In the end, we have the process, and the process is quite easy. You have to communicate, and you have to have awareness. If you don't know what is an accessible app, you cannot make your app accessible. And if you don't know what the pain points of the users are, you can't make the app accessible. And you also need to communicate to your designers, because the designers need to give you designs for large font, for instance, or how should be the UX for screen readers. This is all something you have to talk with your designers. And when you, for instance, work in an e-commerce app, I was working in my job before in an e-commerce, we had to also talk to people from advertisements. You cannot just have an image with, hey, you get 50% off. This is not working, because you have to give also like some text, some alt text, that we can understand, hey, actually we get some 50% off. A nice thing to actually have a good accessibility process are checklists. This is a checklist just screenshotted from the Flutter docs. So even Flutter has a accessibility checklist, and I was talking to a Googler who is very focused on accessibility. And he himself told me, Manuela, in Google, we also use accessibility checklists to ensure accessibility. So if you don't have that yet in your company, maybe it makes sense to talk about it, because accessibility is a requirement in the EU from next year on. And in the USA, it is already important. There's already a law for it. I'm not sure how it is in Japan, but if it's not there yet, the law will probably come, because it is in nearly every bigger country. So yeah, with this, I'm finishing my little sneak peek of Stop Treating Accessibility as an Afterthought. And I have one more thing, because I see so many female developers here. There's a group, kind of not really official by Google, but we get a lot of support from Google, called FlutterNinjas. It's for non-binary and female developers, and we get specific insights from the Google team about Flutter, and we have monthly meetings. We have also our own online conference. Last year it was in November, so feel free to join. It is also in the QR code that I will share now. So with this QR code, you can go to FlutterNinjas' website, also see my talks, my Twitter, and yeah, everything concerning about accessibility that I have ever released. So thank you so much for your attention, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I am also 15 minutes, I think, behind in the speaker's question corner, so feel free. And also, if you have any questions after this conference, just Slack me or just write me a message on X. Thank you so much, and yeah.
Thank you so much. So if you have any questions now, maybe you can raise your hand, and staff member will ping your microphone, but you can just go to the Ask the Speaker corner later. Thank you.
Perfect. Means that I was extremely great in explaining everything. Yes.
So thank you very much for the insightful session. So we will take a 15 minutes break from now. So the next session is going to start at 2:05. Thank you.